Now, comedian Russell Brand has left YouTube after one of his posts was censored due to allegedly spreading COVID misinformation on Tuesday. The 47-year-old went on to say his video about the changing narratives around COVID was taken down. He's moving to Rumble, where he will be live streaming weekdays for 1 hour. We have been officially censored by YouTube, Brand explained. Joining me now in the studio from the Free Speech Union is Toby Young himself. Toby, the left are starting to get it because they're getting censored too.
Yeah, that's true. PayPal, for instance, which deplatformed the Free Speech Union and the Daily Sceptic, and me personally, a couple of weeks ago, has also deplatformed, I think, the Socialist Workers' Party.
Right.
And in America, a couple of left-wing sites as well. And, you know, I mean, Russell Brand is kind of a political maverick, not really easy to identify on the left-right spectrum, but he's certainly, if you're going to put him on that spectrum, closer to the left than to the right. So, yeah, this is an example of, it isn't just people like us, Calvin, that are getting deplatformed,
Careful with
demonetised.
Putting me in the same group as you, Toby.
Sorry.
No, but maybe I'm being unfair and making this a left-right issue. But I used to think that the left were the ones that fought for free speech, and now it seems to only come from the right. Is it still a left-right issue?
Well, I think the left need to be concerned, and we see, you know, someone like Russell Brand is the canary in the mine shaft.
Yeah.
Ira Silver, the former head of the American Civil Liberties Union, which won a number of landmark First Amendment free speech victories in the US, enabling the civil rights movement to evolve and develop, march, protest, etc. Ira Glasser said that the problem with speech restrictions is that they're a bit like poison gas. You know, when the wind's blowing in a particular direction, it seems sensible to release the poison gas and, you know, decimate your enemy. But the problem is the wind can change, and that's something the left should be mindful of when celebrating the fact that people like me, and maybe not you, but me, are deplatformed or demonetised by, you know, big platforms like YouTube and Facebook.
But that's it, isn't it? Because you say things that people don't want to hear or people don't necessarily like, so they're happy when you get censored. But when people say things that they agree with, it's more difficult. Therefore, we should always protect everyone's free speech. But I want to talk about Russell Brand's case in particular, because it was taken down for misinformation. Now, clearly, the difference between misinformation and disinformation is intent, isn't it? In that he put out a video that had something incorrect in it, and he put out another video correcting himself. So he wasn't trying to spread disinformation. He wasn't trying to spread lies or untruths or mistruths, however you want to call it. He was telling his story, got something wrong, corrected himself.
Yeah. And what he got wrong was actually fairly minor in the grand scheme of things. He claimed, I think in a video at the beginning of September, that ivermectin, the controversial treatment for COVID-19, which people dispute. Is it effective? Is it ineffective? And there's a huge amount of controversy. And you're not allowed on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, possibly not even on GBNews.
Hey, the only time I've ever had Ofcom investigate me was for mentioning the word ivermectin.
So you're not allowed to praise ivermectin as a treatment, or even say it's even mildly effective as a treatment.
Not necessarily praise it, but you're not allowed to ask questions about it.
And so Russell Brand claimed in this original video, the one he later apologised for, that the National Institutes of Health in America had now approved ivermectin as a COVID-19 treatment, and that wasn't in fact the case. It's still being trialled, and I think some of the trials are being overseen by the National Institutes of Health, but that doesn't mean that they've concluded that ivermectin is now a safe and effective treatment for COVID-19. So he got that wrong. He claimed it had been approved by the Federal Drug Administration in the US, and it hasn't. But he immediately apologised, so I don't think anyone could accuse him of deliberately trying to spread misinformation, which is where it would fall into disinformation, as you said. But nonetheless, YouTube took down that video, gave him a strike, and effectively notified him that if he said anything like that again, his channel would be taken down. And as he pointed out in the video he made about this last week, there are plenty of other examples of people on the less sceptical side of the COVID-19 debate saying things which clearly aren't true. And he gave an example of an official, I think, of the Biden administration claiming that being vaccinated stopped the infection dead in its tracks, that being vaccinated was 100% effective against infection from COVID-19. And we now know, I mean, I don't think we'll get censured by Ofcom for saying this, we now know that it isn't 100%. The vaccines aren't 100% effective. But that video is still up on YouTube. That hasn't been taken down. And, you know, I think by any measure, that is a more misleading statement than anything he may have said. So
well, that's the issue, isn't it? It's consistency.
It's double standards.
Surely, if you want to say you're taking something down for misinformation or disinformation, you do it across a blanket punishment across the board, or you don't do it at all. Is that not the case?
Yeah, I mean, we see these double standards all the time. You know, if you're pro-vaccine, if you are pro-lockdown, if you're in favour of masking and all the rest of it, you know, you're given far more latitude.
Yeah.
Platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, they're much more forgiving than if you're a skeptic, challenging the wisdom of the lockdown policy and associated restrictions, or questioning the efficacy and safety of the COVID-19 mRNA vaccines. You know, you're not allowed to dissent or get anything wrong on one side of the aisle. On the other side of the aisle, a lot more freedom.
But this is science, so these things change. So what's misinformation last week might not be misinformation this week. It might be factual evidence. So how do we navigate this area without? What I'm getting to is, can we get to a point where we don't need the Free Speech Union to battle for us?
Well, that would be nice, but I don't think it's coming anytime soon. I think there are just certain things now, certain sacred cows, which you're just not allowed to challenge in the mainstream, whether in the media or on big tech. You're not allowed to challenge the various shibboleths of woke orthodoxy. You're not allowed to challenge the idea that we're in the midst of a climate emergency and we need to get to net zero as quickly as possible to avert the crisis. You're not allowed to challenge, more or less, any orthodoxy in connection with the pandemic, the vaccines, and so forth. So, you know, if you stray into these, you know, hot button issues, and if you say something that challenges the kind of prevailing orthodoxy, then likelihood is you'll find yourself silenced, deplatformed, demonetised, cancelled. And that clearly we've got to do something about that, and that's why, in part, the Free Speech Union exists. It's why the Daily Sceptic exists, to challenge these sacred cows.
Because it sounds like blasphemy laws to me. It sounds like this is a cult. That was Toby Young from the Free Speech Union. Toby, thank you so much for explaining that to us.